Hello, everyone, and welcome to a Backseat critique for Rebel Ridge. These are basically vlog movie reviews done. We used to sort of sit in a room and do it, and before that, we sat in a car and did it. Hence, Backseat critique. But now we're sort of sitting in computers doing it because this means we can see each other more often and do these more often, which is more videos for everyone. So we like that, don't we?
Yeah.
I don't know if I
Yes.
like that.
So, this time we watched Rebel Ridge, the film that just came out this month on Netflix. It's sort of a thrillery, corrupt police department versus, screw over the wrong guy type film. Kind of, I think the codifier of this kind of film was the first Rambo, before he became a meme. But more recently, you got like Black 47, a spectacular Irish film about a Irish soldier during the potato famine, wiping out all the British guys in charge of his hometown, which was quite spectacular. But it's that kind of thing. We're all familiar with this kind of righteous anger against authority type film, and we've got differing opinions on this one. Very differing opinions. I thought it was pretty good, and not everyone agrees with that. Controversy. Discuss.
I was kind of bored.
I enjoyed it.
I like the concept. The acting was fantastic. But overall, it was really slow.
That it was slow. And
Very
that was
ponderous.
That was part of the charm.
Mm.
I saw the director. I saw his previous film, Green Room, and it was kind of similar. It was about Patrick Stewart in charge of a group of neo Nazis, laying siege to a place, and so it was similar sort of slow, realistic style.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't an action movie, and that's something. Like, I went into it blind, but it wasn't really blind because about 5 minutes in, I realized, oh, I watched a trailer for this, and it was on my watch at some point, but because it was on Netflix, it fell right off my radar, as always happens with these streaming films. But yeah, as you mentioned, it felt it was slower. It was more real in that regard. It almost felt like a slow build as it progressed into small crescendos. As it progressed, you got to points like, oh, this could be the preparative sort of the finale, and then it broke away from that, and then it came back. It was veering about the place in a good way. Um, I liked it.
I might have missed it, but I also didn't get what the point of holding them for 90 days was. Did I miss the
They're evil.
revelation of why they were doing that?
Yeah, the audio was a bit low and sluggish, but
Oh, yeah. Couldn't
on
hear
occasions,
half the shit they said because they were
yeah,
mumbling a
the
lot, and then the music
it
would go insane. That's my pet peeve in films. I've mentioned it before. Whenever the music overwhelms the dialogue, nah, fuck it.
there's a reason for why that's happening nowadays because it's not just a you thing. That's quite a common
Yeah,
complaint,
it's
but there is
because
a
they're
reason
being
for it.
mixed for cinemas, but these
Yeah,
films aren't watched in cinemas.
yeah. Well, it's not just mixed for cinema. It's the film technology has gone so far advanced that directors are basically able to tailor how they want the film to sound, and home theater ones they got to be tailored the exact right way to play it properly. And as a result, most TVs and most ways of streaming it are not tailored like that, so they end up pretty bad. Which is why Netflix and all, as far as I can tell, that's why Netflix has subtitles on as standard.
Mm.
It's a bit of a crappy problem.
Yeah.
Well, in terms of
It's
the 90 days, go
the
ahead.
same reason why there's a lot of modern TV and films have very very dark visuals, like the Game of Thrones battle and series, the last series.
So they can
You
save
couldn't see
money
everything.
on costumes as well.
I wouldn't be surprised, but yeah, I will shut up now.
At least it didn't have my other pet peeve, where they hire a cameraman with Parkinson's. Hate that in modern films, especially in Marvel. Hold the fucking
It's
camera
because
still.
That's because a moving camera, we've been trained ever since the 40s to view that as more real, thanks to newsreel footage and news footage and all, and
Do you know why
it's
they do
so
it in
silly.
modern action films?
Interesting. Why?
Especially in fight scenes between the title characters. They don't want the title characters to do their own fight scenes and stunts in case they get hurt, and that would delay
Oh,
filming. So,
cutting around them.
whenever they cut around them and shake the camera, that means that they can do these massive wide swipes so they're never actually anywhere near each other.
Yeah,
Makes
that's
sense.
definitely part of it, but beyond
That's why they
that,
do it.
it's also because they do have so many cuts to it, it allows them to effectively create the fight sequence in post. They
Yeah.
don't need to pre-choreograph it in not so much detail. They can just flip between different angles and make it feel like a fight, even if it makes no sense.
It's kind of lazy.
It is lazy. Marvel was one of the reasons there.
The main example I find, I think it's either Taken 1 or Taken 2 or Taken 3, where Liam Neeson is hopping a fence. Basically, he climbs up on a car, jumps over a chain link fence. 47 cuts. Not joking. They cut the camera angle that amount of times in a span of 27 seconds.
Still not as bad as Quantum of Solace.
Yeah.
I've watched movies. I've watched whole movies with less cuts than that.
Yes.
Yeah, like Russian Ark was that one, the entire film.
One take, yeah.
Back to this film.
Time Code was 4 shots that don't cut between them, but you watch all 4 at the same time.
Now, we should probably go back to talking about this film instead of the 5 other films we've just talked about.
So, yeah, that's my opinion. It was a good film, like the plot. Actors were fantastic. Slow and kind of boring, in my opinion.
It was kind of odd that this is so explicitly set in the US South, but so few characters actually had Southern accents. You've got the blonde lady, you've got Judge James Cromwell's doing a pretty ropey accent, and Don Johnson, the villain, he's got his Texan accent, but most other characters just seem to be going for generic American.
Well, there was that one guy who had a Georgian accent, and his only line was, "You better string that boy up."
Yeah, so that most of the characters are just like. I'm pretty sure it's set in Louisiana, and it's got a very distinctive accent. You'd think you'd want to get some at least some vocal color in there with the accents. But, even if you're putting on ropey ones, it's like setting a British film in Glasgow, and everyone sounds like they're from England. It's just off.
Yeah, especially since it's in a small town. A small town you'd expect would have more localized accents. It's not like we're talking about a big city here where they might have a lot of people moved in from other places.
Yeah, the main guy, he was spectacular. He's because I was sure I'd seen him in something else, and I was sure he'd played like a robot or something, because that had made use of the fact that he has very, very compelling eyes, like they're interestingly colored and stuff like that. And I'm very sure something had used that. And I looked through his biography, his filmography, and I didn't spot what I was thinking about. So maybe I'm mistaken for another actor. But yeah, apparently this is his first big role, and before that, he was mostly in supporting things and a couple of TV things. And he's English. He's putting on the accent. That is a fantastic American accent for somebody who's not American.
The director definitely recognized that. There was a lot of face on him shots, not off to the side or movement, just straight up, just letting the intensity of him and his eyes take the scene. Sometimes in the background there'd be a bit of movement, but it would all be focused on him, as much of the film was. Something I did specifically mention is the soundtrack. There was, I will say, soundtrack is a better term for it because it definitely ain't music. But it was slow building, almost like a sense of dread to each of those major action pieces throughout. Just constantly in the background, almost like a heartbeat, drumbeat, as almost like it's reflecting him and his mood and mental point as the film progresses. So really appreciated that. Definitely added a sense of progression and mood to the place.
Yeah.
So shall we go into spoilers?
Yeah, we probably should have said that at the start, but you're watching a backseat review of a film. You should know there's going to be spoilers.
Yeah, we do like spoilers.
Yeah, but the whole thing starts around at the start of the film with the legalized theft of civil assets forfeiture, where they essentially knock this guy off his bike because he didn't hear them ring the siren because he had his headphones on. And then they found a load of money in his bag and decided, yoink, because I still can't get over that that's fucking legal in the States.
Yeah, it is fucking nuts.
So now this takes me back to the point you made earlier, Nicola, and I couldn't answer regarding the 90 days thing. The reason they held them for 90 days is the forfeiture. They could hold on to it indefinitely if you've been incarcerated for at least 90 days. That's why he said about, whenever they said about releasing 90 days, he said that was a mistake. He didn't want to hold them a day longer than he had to. So basically they held them that long just so they could hold on to their assets and never get them back. And that goes back to the earlier mentioning from the blonde lady who talked about how you can get your assets back, including fighting in court, which would cost you more than the money in question, because it's so difficult in the American system to get the things back from forfeiture.
It is. And see that bit too, where it's like the state of whatever versus an amount of money. That's actually
A state of denial.
Yeah, that's actually true. You don't get called up on the docket. The case is against the money. The money is accused of the crime.
Yeah,
so if you don't know what to look for, you'll never find the judgment so you can make an appeal on it.
The film had
fucking nuts.
The film had a number of interesting points it was trying to make. Forfeiture is definitely one of them. It was definitely trying to put a spotlight on it. We had, of course, racial discrimination. We had abuse of police. All three of those were big ones. Though of course they still had to have the good apples in there. You had, although they were trying to paint the police officers as massively corrupt, you had the good cop, you had the cop that turned at the end, you had the judge who was doing it but really felt guilty about it, and in the end couldn't
did a
take the
cat.
guilt. And he had a cat to make him feel personable. So they definitely
Plus,
did these things.
Plus, the judge discovered warp drive, so we got to give him a pass for that.
Well, that's in the future. That's not happened yet.
Oh, fair
I think
enough.
you're mixing up actors, dear.
It's like James Cromwell. Love him. He's great.
Also, the fact that they basically knocked over the police, and then the entire force folded.
Yeah, well, at the end there, is that what you're referring to, the finale?
Yeah.
Well, it's not that they knocked it over, it's that they went into a different precinct's jurisdiction. So basically, the other cops were the ones then escorting them. So basically, there must have been some awareness in the other cops in the neighboring thing that something was going on. Or maybe it was the good cop that called ahead and basically said, hey, shit's going down. That wasn't made very clear. I was sitting there
Hunters become the hunted,
thinking
it was the same guys that were chasing them.
No, it was different people.
No, it was the same cars.
It
was the brand new squad cars.
Well, of course, the squad cars they're shared in terms of designs, districts. But it was a different precinct.
I think they said John Johnson was talking about cutbacks and stuff. His was the only one precinct that was doing certain things, including like doing car stuff involving other ones. So that might have discovered a plot hole there, because it would have to be his own people.
Yeah, because as it says, the main bully cop was basically knocked out of commission. The police chief who shot one of the good apples was then pit maneuvered and wrecked, and then the rest of the police force went, yeah, we shouldn't do what the captain says anymore, and then they started escorting them out of the district towards the hospital. So,
well, I mean, if that was the case, it's silly.
It seemed to be rather uncomfortably trying to fit between fight back against this terrible sort of thing type film. Uncomfortably mixing with, hey, this real life thing is really fucked up and it should be stopped. And if you're trying to do a serious film about that issue, you should probably do something a little more grounded. Or you should do the ridiculous adventure, fight back type one. Putting them together it's not 100% great. I mean, I enjoyed it, but it's kind of half of one thing and half of the other, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's not particularly relatable having a main character who just so happens to have partial ownership of a restaurant and able to get 30,000 quid to bail his cousin out. It just happens because a lot of this is happenstance. So it just happened to be he reached into this happened. Just happened to be friends with somebody who was already somewhat involved, who just happened to have a police officer on the inside who was a good thing. So there's a lot of things there going on which was clearly written for convenience sake, and I'll take issue with that. But the point was, it was a revenge film at its heart. But what I did appreciate it was a revenge film which didn't murder everybody, which is a bit refreshing. Did anybody other than the cousin actually die? I think
The judge.
no.
No, he survived. They got to him in
yeah, they
time.
got ambulances there and said, "Do you
Oh,
think he'll live?" And it said, "Yeah, he should be fine."
He
oh,
took
okay,
an
I missed
overdose of his
that.
dead wife's medication out of guilt.
Yeah, it was an overdose, but I mean, they called an ambulance right away. Which again, they're just trying to establish they're good guys. There was very little. There was deliberately trying to avoid any implication that our main character was actually a bad guy.
Of course, he couldn't be a bad guy.
The
He was a veteran.
Hmm.
He never served abroad.
Yeah, it was kind of, the system is corrupt. We've got to use this element of the system against the system to win, to make the system less corrupt, kind of thing, which is a little bit confused. But this is one of the film does a tightrope between when you're trying to demonstrate a problem with society about how to try and fix it. Because if you show it being fixed, then it opens a whole other can of narrative worms. One of the things that the Marvel films get yelled at for never fixing anything. You've always got, like, if there's a the Falcon the Winter Soldier just ends with the Falcon doing a big speech to some senator saying "do better," which is very dramatically unsatisfying. But if they actually fixed the societal issues that were brought up in the thing, it would then suddenly it would make a whole other things unravel. So it's one of the shortfalls of making narratives that involve real life issues. You got to be clever about it, or you got to be lazy about it. If any of that makes sense.
Yeah, and with Marvel it makes sense, especially because they follow up films, so they need to live in the world, and if they fix everything, it doesn't apply. And in this film, they could have gone ahead and made it clear that the cops all got arrested and everything was fine. But one thing I did appreciate is they didn't make that clear. They had the main
They got to get
character.
arrested though. They got to get arrested though by other cops, which is
Yeah,
just the same problem. It's the system being relied to police itself. So they cannot go to the film's ultimate point is that the system is bad, but it can't get rid of the system. That's because that is like it's outside the box. We cannot think like that. So the film, it's kind of hobbled itself, if that
well,
makes sense,
no, the
narratively.
film deliberately left itself ambiguous at the end, giving this sense of
Yeah,
victory for the main characters, while very specifically not showing them win. He had the footage, but at any point, a bunch of cops could break in and shoot him dead. But we basically got left with that possibility, one way or the other, which I appreciated. I wouldn't have wanted a nice clean cut. Oh yes, they lived happily ever after, or they got completely fucked. Happy with
yeah.
that approach.
And there's a rich history of whistleblowers of various types, being in mysterious accidents. So yeah, this could very well be leading into a really tragic ending.
Or the one cop who did try to stand up against civil forfeiture abuse and was committed involuntarily for 18 years. That's true.
That kind of stuff.
He basically tried to blow the whistle. His chief got wind of it and fabricated a load of evidence to make him seem unstable and got him involuntarily committed. And he was there for 18 years.
The that's a whole other can of worms with to do
Yep.
with mental
America's
hospital.
fucked up!
I was told a story. There was basically there was I'm trying to remember the exact details. There was a group of people who decided basically to put some people undercover in mental hospital, and they were told not, basically to be completely normal, and they were totally normal. And basically in the mental hospital, the people basically decided they had all these mental illnesses, even though they didn't. It was testing them. And then after this came to light, then the mental hospitals were like, you lied to us. This proves that that you're dishonest and stuff. So then they said, we'll send other people in there, within the next like 3 months, and if you see if you can identify them. And they're like, we will, we'll definitely do that. And they never sent anyone, and they kept identifying people. There's a lot of fucked up stuff in society.
The mental care was absolutely gutted by the Reagan administration.
Yeah, there is a general sense in society that whenever you think there's a problem, then you're going to see the problem. So whenever you put people in a mental asylum situation, people start to see issues that aren't there because they're associating with them with mental illness, but when you just wouldn't in general society.
Mm.
Yeah.
Not enough
Let's show
focus
they're
is put
depressed,
on
isn't it?
mental health.
Like the film.
Yeah, and that's in general. That's here too. Trying to get any help for mental health here is fucking waiting lists.
Oh, yeah, it's well beyond mental health. It's a general societal problem. And that's a problem with us as well as individuals. Put us in different situations. But like, take the clear example of how do you get away with going places you're not meant to be, look like you belong. It's just if we expect to see something, it's what we see.
Well, I used a clipboard and a high-vis vest.
Yeah, exactly.
My brother managed to get into a gig, and I cannot for the life of me remember who it was, but it was a big band. This was when he was in his early 20s. He essentially got a black t-shirt with security on the back of it, and he walked up to where the roadies were unloading the vans. He picked up a box and walked in. He helped them move things in and then just hung around backstage. At one point, someone handed him a lanyard so he could come back in the door carrying stuff. That was our Stephen. You probably never get away with that now.
It's around to the time whenever Spoonie was late for that convention in Limerick.
Oh yeah, he accidentally invaded the UK.
Yeah, he was flying from Arizona via Heathrow, and this was during the 2012 Olympics, and he was doing his flight transfer, and he took a wrong turn at some point, and he ended up having bypassed passport control. And he was asking somewhere like, "Where's he supposed to go?" And they're like, "Where the hell did you go? What? You haven't stepped what?" And so he had to take the people back the way he came, so they could fix this hole in security. And then as a result, he had to get a later flight. He arrived about 6 hours late. Poor guy. He was so stressed.
Oh, that was after all the heightened security. It was so funny. He was telling us this story.
Oh, before we do serious stuff again, I want to show you guys an Easter egg, okay? It's just a wee Easter egg, just for the fans, okay?
But Americans don't know what Easter eggs are.
Aha! 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 They are going.
We found this. We found this in a cupboard. I have an Easter egg.
A literal Easter egg.
Yeah. It's out of date by about 3 months, but it's chocolate, so it should be fine.
Yeah,
if I die, that's why.
As long as it was kept somewhere dry, it'll be grand.
Yeah.
I like American chocolate that turns to white powder.
But yeah, we're well and truly off track here. Is
We
there
are.
anything else you want to say about the film, or should we wrap up?
Overall, the actors were pretty good. There was no one who seemed out of place. Everybody seemed to be in the scene, which I quite liked. Again, the sound balance was a turn off for me. I thought it was a bit slow. It was an alright film. Wouldn't rush to see it again. I would recommend it, I
I give it a
suppose.
I give it a 7.5 out of 10. You know, not I have some of the similar issues, but not quite as bad. It was, pretty strong. Though, if you're gonna watch one film like this, go for Black 47. You got this just guy speaking Gaelic, killing the fuck out of all the redcoats and the local lord and stuff. It is brilliant.
I would concur. 7.5 out of 10. Enjoyable film. It's on Netflix. If you have Netflix, give it a shot. Worst that you can do is not like it and turn it off.
True.
Yeah.
Alright. So, anything you want to say, Zara, before you shoo everyone?
Um,
You know.
Honestly, I'm not sure. We I hope you enjoyed the video. Please, if you wanna, if it's basically what we're trying to do with this is do newer films that have come out, in particular streaming ones. So if you have any suggestions, please feel free to leave them in the comments. Comments are always good. YouTube likes it when people talk.
For some reason.
Yeah, and keep an eye out for interesting stuff that's on the horizon. We're working on some fun things for the fans.
Mhm.
And for the four of you that there are.